Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Boo from Ohhhhhh Distilling, and today we are going to be making brandy, specifically pineapple brandy. As far as fruit goes, really the sky's the limit. You guys are welcome to use the fruit you'd like. I do have a pretty handy chart, which you can see on the screen now. And from there, you can kind of dial in the fruit that you want. Hopefully it's on that list. I am more than happy to send this to you guys. Go ahead and email me at boo@milehidistilling.com and I'll send that chart your way if you want it. But again, we chose pineapples. There wasn't much of a reason for that other than it sounded good and they're in season right now. This is going to be a pretty interesting one for me because out of all my experience with fermentation, I've only had 2 fermentations get stuck. Both of those fermentations were fruit. So I'm going to use all my experience from those past fermentations. Hopefully we get this one done right. Now here's going to be our steps. Our first step is going to be prepping our fruit. Depending on the fruit you use, there might be extra steps that you have to do, such as with peaches, you don't want to put the pits in your fermentation. They can be toxic. So, depending on what you do, you can look into that. But we're prepping our fruit. We're getting it ready. We're getting in small slices or pureeing it. Number 2, we're going to be looking at adding that fruit into our fermentation bucket. Number 3, we're going to be looking at adding some sort of liquid into that vessel to increase our volume. This could be fruit juice. This could be just water, really whatever you have available. Number 4 is we're going to be looking at actually adding some additives this time around. Fruit is notorious for being somewhat hard to ferment. It's very finicky because a lot of fruits produce their own natural strain of yeast, and sometimes the yeast you add will fight with it. Step number 5, we're going to be looking at adding our yeast. So the process is fairly straightforward. We're going to go through it today. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get right into it, folks. Step 1, we're going to prep our fruit. Our first step is to get these pineapples cut up. Now you might have saw from the chart that I just showed you, we recommend about 3 pounds of pineapple per gallon of water. We're doing a 6.5 gallon batch. So that's going to equate to 19.5 pounds of pineapples per batch. We're going to just cut it even at 20. We have 40 pounds here of pineapples. We'll get them all cut up, get them prepped, and then we'll move on to the next step. We're looking a little something like that on these. Now with our bucket full of pineapple, our next step is going to be adding water into this. So I say water, but it could also be fruit juice. It really just depends on what you have. The one thing you have to watch out for with using fruit juice is if the fruit juice has any sort of preservatives, don't use it. It'll mess with your yeast. That was the thing that happened here. I tried to source some pineapple juice. I could not find any without preservatives, and I don't have access to a press to press 13 gallons worth of fruit. So right now we're just going to be using regular water. It's going to take away a little bit from the flavor. I really like making my brandies with that fruit juice, but I think when we actually distill, we're going to incorporate a few methods in that are going to give us some of that flavor back. So I think we'll be okay here. So again, we're going to use 5.5 gallons water in each of these buckets, 12 gallons total, and proceed to the next step after that. So we're also going to take the time to do a little bit of experimentation. And with this experimentation, it's going to change up our water methods between the two buckets. Now, if you've seen past fermentations on this channel, you know that I usually use hot water. And the reason for that is it gives sugar a chance to dissolve. We usually add sugar into our fermentations to increase our ABV. What I think we'll do here is I want to see what ABV I'm going to get naturally, as well as what sugar can do. So for one of these fermentations, we're going to be adding water in at about 95 degrees. That's perfect for the yeast we're going to use. So we're just going to go all natural, add some liquid on top, pitch our yeast, or our additives and our yeast, and done. The other one, I'm going to add 8 pounds of sugar, and just to see how those numbers differ, you can choose the method you'd like to go. Take a look at the end here where we'll have our hydrometer readings and see which one you like better. But for that one that we're adding sugar to, we're going to put boiling water on top of there. That's going to give that sugar a chance to dissolve while we add it. We'll just have to wait a little bit longer for yeast to be added. Now let's go ahead and add 8 pounds of dextrose to our bucket, which we're going to experiment with sugar. We'll mark it so we know which one's which. Let's give that a nice stir. Pineapple juice already. That's kind of funny too. I mean, obviously, if anyone's made lemonade, you understand the science behind this, but in the one with sugar in it, you can smell a little bit more of those pineapples. So fair warning, I did end up using a little more volume in this bucket, not accounting for the sugar. I thought the pineapples would take more room than they did, but I ended up using about 6 gallons of water for our natural batch, and then the 5.5 for our sugar batch. Now, while I'm waiting for my sugar batch to cool down, let's go ahead and complete our natural fermentation. So our next step is going to be adding some additives, namely pectic enzyme. So pectic enzyme, pectin is something found naturally in fruit. Pectic enzyme is an enzyme that helps fruit thrive. Now, like we mentioned before in this video, fruit can naturally produce its own yeast. It also has a bunch of enzymes living in the fruit. So there's a lot going on in this fermentation. If we were to pour a packet of champagne wine yeast over this, there's a chance it could work, absolutely. But the way yeast works is these are living colonies, you have to remember. They're fighting for survival, both of them. So when you mix two colonies together, they tend to fight each other off, just like ants would. They're just foreign, they're outsiders. You want to hurt them off. Humans and war, man, it's the same thing. So what we're going to be doing is adding some pectic enzyme, which will help that yeast thrive and just, I guess, be a little bit more dominant so that the natural yeast located in the fruit doesn't take over. That's a lower percentage yeast, and yes, it will work, but we don't want 2 or 3%. It's not worth going to this trouble. We want, 10, 12, something like that. you're going to want to add half a teaspoon per gallon of fermentation. That's going to be around 3 teaspoons. So fun fact I didn't know before this video started, but 3 teaspoons equals 1 tablespoon. Most of you probably knew that already. Go ahead and take a tablespoon and just kind of sugar coat the top of that bucket with that pectic enzyme here. There's definitely a few other things we could add. One thing with fruit is pH can sort of get out of control sometimes. So you may have to add pH stabilizer or some other sort of additive like that to kind of balance your pH. I've mentioned before, here in Colorado we have really nice water, so our pH is pretty balanced already. And I guess we'll have to watch how this pineapple will do. We're going to have some pH testing strips nearby. We'll probably take a reading tomorrow and see what it's doing. But hopefully everything goes smoothly and we don't need to add anything else. However, keep in mind, you might have to add something like a pH stabilizer, citric acid to increase your pH. There might be a few other things you have to do on your end. All right, guys, we are at our final step. We're finally here. All we have to do is add our yeast. We're going to be adding Red Star champagne yeast. This is an all-time favorite of mine for fruits. Out of everything on the market, I'd recommend you get EC 1118. That's Echo Charlie 1118. That is by far, I think, the best fruit yeast on the market right now. This is what I have available in the shop right now for the time being, and I've used it effectively a few times. Now, one small packet of this is going to make 20 to 23 liters of fermentation. We're at 25. I've used it effectively with that 25. We're probably good to go. So one packet of this, I'm going to sprinkle over the top of that. Now we're also going to add about 2/3 of a tablespoon of diammonium phosphate, otherwise known as DAP. This is a very basic yeast nutrient. It's going to help that yeast thrive. We want to do everything in our power to help that yeast thrive. And then make sure to give that a nice stir. We want a very thorough stir. I got a little more smell coming out once that oxygen hit. So, good sign. I'm liking that. Now, guys, if you've made it this far, you're completed. Almost. There's one other thing we have to do. Now, the very last thing we have to do, and this is incredibly imperative, guys, we have to take a shot together. If you have a shot nearby, guys, please have a drink with me. Celebrate this monumentous occasion. This is a beautiful brandy. We're so excited for it. If you have a shot of brandy, grab one. Guys, I also want to remind you, please, if you're enjoying this channel, please be sure to like this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Please be sure to keep those notifications on for future videos. And also, one more thing, if you guys would be so kind, please look down below in the description. You're going to see our TikTok there, our Instagram, our Facebook. Please be sure to join, follow, everything you need to do on those as well. We greatly appreciate the support. We love you all so much. We love doing these videos, and I hope you guys do too. Also, just a friendly reminder that June 20th, which is now the date we're looking at, is going to be our open house with Downslope Distilling. We had a great turnout last time we did this. Everyone had a blast. If you guys are local to Colorado, please be sure to join up with that. I'm going to go ahead and be sending out a newsletter here next week with an invitation to that. It's a free RSVP, whether you make it or not. Go ahead and RSVP. No harm, no foul. And we hope to see you down there. Now, all that's really left to do here is going to be taking a hydrometer reading, and then past that, we're going to be steadily monitoring this with pH strips as well as our hydrometer. We're going to be making sure that, one, our pH isn't going too out of whack, and number two, that whatever our starting gravity is, it's going down from there. Let's say we start at 1.050. We'll definitely want to make sure that over time, within the next few days, that is starting to go down, or I guess up, if you think about how a hydrometer works. And that is letting us know that our sugars are being converted, because we don't want to get a stuck fermentation. So that's going to be a little bit for me, but with the magic of editing, you'll see it right now. We'll go to that step. Okay, so we have some percolation here, which is great. Definitely some alcohol in that one. Oh, and even more alcohol in this one. So our sugar one is definitely doing a little bit more work, but they're both tasting, smelling like alcohol. Let's go ahead and take a hydrometer reading. Let's do some pH as well. So there's pH meters out there. I use pH testing strips. It's a pack of 100 of them for, I think, around $7 or so here. and they seem to work pretty effectively. What we're going to do is hold it in there for a sec. We go ahead and pull it out, let it dry out, and then we just kind of match up with color. So let's put that off to the side. Well, decent. So naturally I'm getting about 6%. That's not terrible. We could definitely throw in a few more pineapples, get maybe a tiny bit more. And I think it'd be okay. We don't want to go too high on this. When you start messing with 15–20% alcohol by volume, you're taking away a lot of the natural fruit flavors by doing that. You're getting some byproducts and other things that are a little bit volatile. But we have a little room to work. I think we could probably get up to 8, potentially even maybe 10%, and still retain a lot of those natural flavors and have that yeast work off effectively. We're going to come back to that one. I'll let you know. You'll see it if I end up doing that. Let's go ahead and do our sugar real quick. Okay, so that's a little less than I was expecting with sugar, but not terrible. We're looking to be about 9%. I'm happy between the two. I mean, I think it should be a decent yield when we collect everything. Hopefully the sugar doesn't create too many byproducts, and I guess we'll just see. As far as pH goes, looks like I was sitting at a little bit acidic. This is the thing with pH. They're cheap, but they're not as effective as a pH meter. From what I saw on their color coding scale, it basically goes 1, 2, 4, 6, and so on. And each color represents, that certain level of pH. We look to not be quite at the color that you would expect with a 6.0. So I'm willing to bet that I'm a little bit under, still probably a little bit higher than basic, but I think everything is good. What I will have to do is I will need to manage everything. So I'll have to make sure that that pH doesn't get too out of whack during this weekend. Everything like that, we'll have to keep coming back with different readings and seeing what we have. If something does happen, I'll probably update you guys in the comments. So let's just pray nothing does, and we are all good. I've tried to make a brandy. I think now this is the 3rd time, maybe 4th, and it's never worked out. So I am so happy. You've seen it here live. We just made our first brandy. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have success with your brandy. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.